How's it going, man?
Dude, it's good. It's really good. How's your week been? Because this week feels like a really successful week so far, and it's just, Tuesday.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. Yesterday we got a crazy phone call that might be like the big break that we needed.
Yeah.
So we're trying to like not talk too much about stuff that hasn't actually happened yet.
Have you noticed?
Yeah,
have
good
you
job.
noticed that?
And sometimes if you tell people
Have
that
I
it's
known?
gonna happen, it doesn't happen.
Like if
Well,
you
today's the
then you get like screwed over by the rest of everyone else that doesn't want you to win or something. It's weird.
you do, yeah, yeah. It's there was like this philosophical stuff that I was reading one time, and it was like, hey, when you want to accomplish something, don't tell people what you're doing, because then you almost like start to talk yourself out of it. It's like a mind. They were talking about it from like a mindset thing. But
Oh.
then yeah, you just somehow self-sabotage if you keep talking about this stuff, and it's almost like, yeah, it'll happen someday, because you just keep talking about it happening someday rather than right now.
Yeah,
That's right. So that's why. Well, anyway, that's beside the point.
Anyway.
Why don't we get started? You ready? Is everybody ready?
Yeah.
Mark likes
You guys are great. I have so much fun on conversations with both of you. It's so cool. I dig it. And Mark, your shirt is amazing. Shelby, your dress is just super bright and colorful. Today's the end of Mercury retrograde too, so that maybe that's why it's such a good week. Yeah.
Probably.
I know. Whew.
You gotta be careful with the
party tonight. Ashley
right.
says hi also.
Oh, hi, Ashley. So yeah, today we have hello, Ashley.
Hey, look,
we got Ashley special guesting, and we have Rick Jordan.
On what show?
On Sloan and the Smeltz.
Nice. We started. Cool.
You're casual here.
I love it.
Hi, Rick. How are you?
What's up, Mark? I'm good. I'm really, really good. I was thinking, because I'm actually traveling right now, but I was thinking, it's like, hey, do I have a couple days to do what I need to do and get with my team, because they're kind of dispersed across the US? I'm like, or do I want to be in my studio for when I do? Because I'm guesting on your show right now, which is awesome. Thank you, by the way. It's so cool to be on. And there's a couple others that I'm guesting on today and tomorrow. I'm like, I'm just going to go casual. I always come in in just like the fullness of the production in the studio, and I just want to be real the next couple of days with you guys, with everybody else I'm talking to, and I think that's where everybody's going to. You ever feel that way? Like you look at your Instagram feed and you're like, man, is everything overproduced?
Yeah,
that's been my thoughts lately.
I think people are starting to understand that you don't have to be like plastic for people to still watch.
Yeah.
Some people still do it, but it's
yeah.
So we're all filmmakers, and it was once described to me that Instagram, that your feed is the movie and your stories are behind the scenes. They're BTS. I'm like, that's kind of a cool way to put it. But now, especially with coming out of last year, it's like nobody really cares so much about the movie on social media anymore. Everybody's just like, yeah, that's great. But I remember coming into it, there were these, because I've got an Aston Martin. I love the car. I've done photo shoots with the car.
Great marketing tool, man.
Right on. It really is. But then going into last year, when everybody was suffering, with the pandemic from an economic and financial perspective, I saw all these, internet gurus. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but first there's some that'll just walk into parking lots, and I've seen it with my car too. They'll walk up and be like, hey, what's up? I'm having a great day. Look at my ride. And I'm like, dude, that's my car. That was a movie, wasn't it? Dude, it's my car. Where's my car? That's it. Yeah. But they were going into last year and still posting these photos of them on like yachts and everything. It's like, that's not what people want. They want the real of what's going on. So even taking a look at what I'm putting out too, and I know your film is coming out in a year or so, and people are just looking for the real stories now, the real people that they can almost see and touch through the screen.
Yeah.
I like where things are going.
What is the realness that's missing from Reach Out? What realness can you bring to the table before the IPO?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do right now for real. Because even what's been missing is my struggle, my personal backstory when I talk from stage, because I mean, we were just talking about my Aston Martin, right? And I've got a lot of successes, but there's been a lot of struggle in my life, and sort of tragic moments have defined why I am who I am now. And going through, it wasn't even necessarily when I lost my job. This was just pointed out to me the other day, or my weight loss and all that. But my dad died when I was 16. And then I went through my own near-death experience just 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago now. And the comparison of those two is just crazy when someone pointed out to me, because even I thought like my big thing was losing my job 12 years ago when I founded Reach Out. My twins were just born, actually almost 14 years. Good God, my twins are 14 this month. That's crazy. Yeah, that's blowing my mind. But so it was about that long ago then, I guess. Time flies. But when I was laid off, they were scheduled to be born. Like my wife was going to be induced 2 weeks after. Like, well, great. I got no income coming in. Let's see what I can do here. So I spun this thing up, but recognizing now, this was just like literally last week, guys, this was pointed out to me that when my dad passed when I was 16, there was no control that I had over stuff whatsoever. He died. I had no control over that. My brother and sister were only 10 and 11 years old. My mom still had to provide an income for the family. My dad was a life insurance salesman in the ghetto in Chicago, and went out and sold, just cheap policies for cash. I mean, we'd go around and collect cash for these life insurance policies, not like automatic bank drafts or credit card payments or anything. So, I mean, he got held up at gunpoint a couple times and had those cash policies stolen, and he was responsible for bringing that cash back to the office. So every time that happened, that came out of his check. It was just crazy the way that he grew up. He probably never made more than $35,000, $40,000 a year, but I was always provided for because he and my mom both worked together. It was a double income household. So when he died, he made sure that there was enough life insurance to cover the house, so there was no mortgage. But still, you got 4 people, and here's my mom making, like $8 an hour.
Yeah.
This was 25 years ago. Even then, $8 an hour was still like nothing, right? Because minimum wage was like $7 or something like that. So it wasn't much above minimum wage. And I just went into this mode. It was like, cool, I got my brother and sister, so I got them fed, woke them up in the morning, drove them to school when I was 16, then took myself to school. I'd always stop at the convenience store on the way, because this is funny. My mom, she thought I was too young to drink coffee. And I'm a coffee lover. Oh my God. I mean, hardcore espresso. My oldest son.
We gotta remember.
My oldest son, when he was 9, I got him into espresso because I was at a Starbucks roastery in Seattle, the big 30,000 square foot one. And we were doing flights of espresso when he was just 9 years old, loving it. But that's how I was too. I always just loved the taste. Okay. And because of my rhythm, it was just, I was using it for the caffeine, but then she's like, you're too young to drink coffee. And no joke, like chucked the coffee maker, just trashed it because she thought I was too young. I'm like, okay, what am I going to do now? So then it became Mountain Dew. I was stopping in the morning at the convenience store, chugging
coffee.
Exactly, right? It tasted great,
but at least your mom cared about your health.
Yeah.
She did, for sure, but I don't blame her. I look back on it and laugh now, and it's like, but that was probably like one of the healthiest things I could possibly drink. And it was just black too. I still don't put anything in it. It was just black coffee, so then it became Mountain Dew, and
it's gross.
Yeah. And then I'd also buy caffeine pills too, because you could go into the store and just, it didn't matter. There were no age restrictions on caffeine pills. Plus I looked a little older. So that's
you guys need any cybersecurity?
I know, right? So we'll get to that, right? Because I would do that, but then I would go and found vulnerabilities in the high school's computer system, and I got kicked out of the computer lab and had to write code by hand and hope to God it worked. It was just horrible because they didn't know what to do with me. But coming back to me being laid off, these 2 scenarios in my life, I already did that. So it's like when I was laid off, and this is what was pointed out to me just a week ago, when I was laid off, it's like, I already knew what to do, because it was like, everything's going to be cool. I've been through something way worse than this. I've raised 2 kids, my brother and sister already for a few years, just 10 years prior. And it's just no problem. I got this. And I look back on it and it wasn't really that stressful. And that's the crazy thing, because that's the story that I was telling before, was like, here's me 12 years ago, broke, and now look at my Aston Martin, but during that time, yeah, there were things to where I had to make choices between, do I pay my mortgage this month or do I buy my kids formula? My power got shut off, can't pay the bill for 3 days, running an extension cord from the refrigerator out to steal electricity from the condo association. So these are all things that I did because I was
That's
that
the
broke.
Christian thing to do, is worry about
Yeah.
your family.
Yeah, right. Funny that I wrote a book on ethics too, right? But
We'll get to that.
yeah, we will. So I did pay them back. I would throw just to be straight, because the association dues or whatever, I can't remember. They were actually expensive for where it was. It was like $200 a month, but it covered snow removal, all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I'd throw like an extra $25 in there just to cover the 3 days worth of power that I was stealing for one refrigerator, whatever. But I knew what to do, and I was never really worried. So building the business up to a certain point to where it supported a lifestyle, and this is the human element. This is a long way to talk to you about, or the realness that you were talking about, right? To where I lost my weight, and because I was 80 pounds heavier, I lost 80 pounds, and I dropped all the weight. But then a year after that is when I got deathly ill, and a gallbladder. But even during that time, that was like correlating back to when my dad passed, and it's like, now what do I do? Because when my dad passed, I went hardcore into career, into doing what I needed to do, making a difference, seeing what I could do to rise through the corporate ladder, trying to figure out what my purpose was in life in my 20s. So then mid 30s is when I got hit with the illness that I had. It was a gangrenous gallbladder. The thing was eating me up from the inside out. Nobody could tell what was going on. And coming out of that, it was another shift for me. It's like, cool, this is what happened to my dad, but now it happened to me. My dad didn't make it. I did. What do I need to do now? I've already lost the weight, so maybe I'll get fit. Maybe I just have to worry about good nutrition now. Maybe I can just do things for a lot of other people. And the realness of my story and me dropping the weight and having these two crazy things in my life that I really didn't put into telling the story, the realness of this, right? Because let's be real, and this is what was told to me. It's like the rags to riches story. Yeah. Is it true? Yeah, it's true. But that's what everybody has, for the most part. But all it says is that, yeah, I face struggle, but everybody else does. So it's real, but it's coming back to like the Instagram feed, right? It's like I could throw photos up there of me in a 2-bedroom, 900 square foot condo with my 5 family members. Of course I could put those up there and be like, yeah, I've been there. I can do it. But where's the realness of this, to where, because that didn't hit me emotionally, when that happened, meaning it didn't cause mental strife or emotional strife in my life when I was laid off, when I was broke. But my dad passing, yeah, sure as hell did. When I was next to dead, yeah, that caused mental and emotional strife. It took me another 1.5 years to pull myself out of that situation, from me almost dying mentally and emotionally, to get back on the road where I need to. And going from, the business was maybe at only about $500,000 a year in revenue. That's it. And I say only because that's where most of these companies exist. These cybersecurity companies, 1 and 2 man shops. That's who they are. It's a lifestyle business. They can make $80,000 to $100,000 a year that they're pulling out. Put money into a 401k, do some tiny crypto investments if they want to, and drain on Social Security if it exists 25 years from now when they retire. That wasn't what I felt my purpose was. It doesn't sound like
it's such a great plan.
Dude, it's not. I know. But that
sounds like lowest of the high.
Yeah. But that's the story that everybody has, right? And is that the real? Because I almost feel like that's kind of like the Matrix, is being plugged into this non-real scenario that just society has pushed on us.
Yes.
To say, this is life, this is what everybody does, and I say that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was literally talking about this the other day. I was like, there are some times where we talk to people and they'll think our dream is crazy, or that's not how you do life, or why can't you go get a regular job? And it's like, but I'm choosing to go after my dream instead. With Gen Z, you don't really see it a lot. They're all like, go after it. And I have friends racking up credit cards to try to build companies like crazy. But then you see like generations like my parents who think we're totally nuts for not just like going to college and going on this work track and getting a job that soul sucks you at a desk forever for a 401k.
Because going after the dream is scary.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to what you were saying of well, I knew that you were trying to go somewhere with, you know, how a lot of the people who are trying to tell you like certain things are BS. Like there was that way of thinking. You had this, like you were doing numbers, right? Like 500K, something like that. And then what? I mean, and then when you started to, you're starting to realize now, like, have you ever really felt like you've been doing it wrong?
Oh yeah, man. It's yesterday. That happens, you know, and yesterday was also a huge win too. You know, I closed $1 million deal yesterday, just, you know, just a single deal. And that was, I had this thing, right? If I close $1 million single time deal, and I know that's when that happens, I'm buying a bottle of Macallan M, because I'm a huge Scotch Macallan M. It's when I made this promise to myself, you know, was four-ish years ago. And at that time, the bottle was $5,000 a bottle. Now it's $7,000 a bottle. But I'm like, that's going to be the celebration, you know, which I'm getting it this week. But you look at that and it's like from, I know.
That's awesome, dude. That's so cool.
On the week that we were talking about, right? It's just, you know, today's only Tuesday, and it's awesome that way. And I got a chance to celebrate with some of my team yesterday around this too. And it's amazing because even with the 500K, and the reel that I also feel is missing from Reach Out for a long time was these celebrations. Because if you're an entrepreneur or even anybody, let's say you're plugged into the matrix, right? It's like, cool, we did this, but there's still like 80 other things to do. And someday I'll be happy. Someday I'll be fulfilled, but that can never be today because there's all these other things to do. That's great. We crushed it. We, you know, I was even patting myself on the back yesterday. It's like, man, this was like 8 months it took to put this thing together. And some of it was horrible trying to go through this. Some of it was dealing with stupid people. Some of it was, you know, working on myself to say, am I staying fully present right now? Because it was that whole thing about, well, someday it's going to happen. You know, but every time I stayed in the moment and was present right there mentally, rather than pushing myself off into the future, that's when there started to be movement. And that's what I noticed coming back. Yeah, right on. And that's what I figured out even with these kind of death experiences in my life with my dad and then with me, is that they pushed me into the future. You know, to where it was like, today's just a grind. And we hear that word a lot in this space. I mean, even in filmmaking, you know, it's just a grind until you get to where we're cool. We've got the funding, we can make this thing finally, you know, but you always think it's like someday it'll happen, but why can't that someday be today?
Yeah.
When you're present right now it becomes cool that I'm going to make what needs to happen right now in this moment in order to push this thing across. Every time I've done that, has it always happened that single day when I finally make that choice? No, because the universe likes to play tricks on you and ask you, are you serious about this?
Yeah.
You know, because I want to see that you're serious. It could just be 24 hours that I need to see that you're serious, but it could be 3 days. It's never lasted longer than a week for me, you know, for this questioning back, Rick, are you serious? You know, but when I made it say, cool, I'm just going to get this thing done. I'm going to be focused right now. And it's like I push all of my mental capacity towards whatever I want to get done. And it always happens within a week.
So are you a big believer in manifestation? Because that's what it sounds like.
I am, yeah. And I've been getting into a lot into human design too. And I don't know if you've gotten into any of that. So law of attraction, all those things. So there's
stuff.
What's that?
Joe Dispenza, what's his name? Like the brain guy.
It's escaping me right now.
Anyway, you were saying.
Yeah, it's really cool because there's manifestation that can happen. Am I big into it? Yes, from the applicable perspective. Because if it's the law of attraction that you're talking about, which I love The Secret. I've read it. I've watched the documentary on it too. I thought the documentary was a little, compared to
Low
the
budget.
Yes.
Because then people would have taken it seriously.
Well, when we first started watching it, we're like, what is this?
I was like, I love the message, but oh God.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're going to do something, try and raise as much money as possible to get, maybe use that as a pitch piece for the next.
Well, a lot of really amazing guerrilla stuff with like $100,000 budgets. So it's really just you attach.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
So more the applicable thing. So like, I know that you're in like, religious. So would you say it's more of that aspect of, trying to connect with the higher power or creator or something bigger than yourself and really kind of ask that entity or that supernaturalness or that God or that thing, whatever it is for you or for anybody really, and asking what you need, not sacrifice, but do you feel like you need to ask to sacrifice something, or do you feel like it's like, you must be the servant first to become the master?
All interesting perspectives. I've shifted my personal beliefs a bit over the past couple of years because I'm an ordained pastor. I don't function within the church anymore, only because I saw limitations. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it's so crazy because the stuff that I believe that exists are things that I believe that God put into place for us already. And a lot of the Western church, I feel, has a limited view of who God is. Mm-hmm. It's when you're asking, around manifestation, or is it a servant thing first? All of that. Do I need to ask for this? I feel almost as if that ask, right? Because that's biblical. It's to say, ask and you shall receive. Awesome. But that really, I believe, puts your mind in there because, dude, every time I've asked, the answer that I've felt that I've gotten is like, well, I've already given you everything you need. Why don't you just go make it happen? And it's because I feel that we all have different purposes. This is my personal belief. We all have different purposes within the world, different people to serve, different functions. You're bringing entertainment to people, which is so important. My full purpose, I believe, is bringing truth into the world in whatever way I possibly can. That stems from my spiritual beliefs too. And where my heart is, that if I look around me and like we were talking, it's like once I finally decide and then I see that, it only takes a week or less, it's because that whole time I've been thinking, it's like, wait, I need this, I need that. It's like, then it's a realization. It's like, I already have everything that I need, or if I feel that I don't, it's like, cool, I know what the first step to take to get the stuff that I need because it already exists someplace around me, maybe just not in my sphere of influence right now. So it could not be for this time, but it might be something that I just need to wait on a bit, but keep moving in that direction. This is manifestation, right? Thinking that I'm headed that way. I know at some point in time when the time is right for me that it's going to happen. And that's something that I believe that God comes into play, because if you're aligned with your purpose, saying like, I see that thing a year from now as being part of my purpose. So whatever happens, whatever things I need to do between here and then, I don't know, but I know what step one is. And then once I'm done with that step, I'll figure out what step two is. Because the things that you see as you start going through these steps, just kind of, I feel, at least for me, they've always just started popping up as far as resources, as far as people, as far as just conversations that you might need to have. As soon as you start moving, yes. Because that's where I feel that God has put everything in order for us. Mm-hmm. It's just he's waiting on us to move. Mm. And even in a lot of the stories that you see in the Bible, you typically see that case. I mean, even to the point to where Jesus himself said to his disciples, it's like, yeah, you're going to do greater things than me. So if you believe in this like I do, Jesus freaking raised people from the dead. Yeah. It blows my mind as far as what we can do that's greater than that.
Well, I mean, some people are meant to die.
Right.
Like Jesus
For
died for
sure.
our sins. Some people are put here to die for the greater purpose, and that's like the best
Yeah.
thing you can do, which is horrible to
Dude,
say, I know, but
No.
Jesus
that was my
died.
dad.
So
That
what
was
do you
my
think
dad.
about Depop? No, just kidding. All right.
Yeah. That was my dad though. So when I dealt with this trauma in my life, it was like, his purpose, because I thought, well, he didn't make much money, so how did he really provide? This was like some internal struggles that I had for a while. He didn't make much money. We didn't have the greatest life, but that's like we are always were taken care of. But he also would say that he had the best part-time job in the world because he was always there when I went to school in the morning and he was always home before I got back. So him providing this crazy, awesome stability of a family environment, it's like, well, he won. Even dying what he did. So if that was his time, which, I'm not claiming to be God, but to your point, maybe that was his purpose. His purpose was to get me to that point, to show me that, yeah, you can win.
Yeah. Well, and I've always
even
believed
in death, you can win.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And I've always believed that if people die before their time in our eyes, it's because something worse was supposed to happen if they didn't.
Do you remember, I'm not sure if anybody's ever asked you that other than probably people that are close to you, but do you regret, we watched your origin story earlier this morning.
Yeah.
Do you regret not seeing your dad at the hospital?
Stole my question.
Yeah, it's a good question. I wouldn't say regret is the word, because anybody who's watching, listening, it was a choice that I made because I knew that he wasn't there. And I was 16, when that happened too. It's quite a lot to take in when you're at that age. And I still would say no. I don't think that was the case. Nobody's ever asked me that before, dude.
Really?
So this is the first time. Yeah, this is the first time I'm actually thinking about it and processing it. It's like, would I have made a different choice knowing what I do now? And no, I wouldn't have, because I wouldn't have, even in that, I wouldn't have gone for me, because I felt like he and I were whole. Even when because it happened super quick, because he had the part that's missing out of the origin story, because he had a bone marrow transplant to kill his leukemia.
You touched on that.
Yeah. And then he came home from the hospital so living in Chicago, he was at the University of Iowa. So it's about a 3-hour drive. And he was home. Everything with the transplant was a success at that point. And I still don't know what happened. I think it was just if I remember right, because I looked at his autopsy, it was a staph infection. So the leukemia was cured because of the bone marrow transplant. But the way they have to do this procedure is kill your own bone marrow, and your bone marrow is what produces your white blood cells, which is your entire freaking immune system. So while you have this new bone marrow in you, you're building back up your immune system. And it was just the right timing for a staph infection to get in. And he had no way to fight it off, none. So, and it was so fast, because leukemia will kill you gradually over time. And you'll see this it's a blood cancer of sorts. He was doing phenomenal. He was home for about 4 weeks. And then one day he spiked like a 105-degree fever out of nowhere, was airlifted to the hospital in Iowa again, because that's where he had just come from. And he was dead within, it was maybe 10 days, something like that. So he was living and breathing and functioning really, really well. And this was an elective procedure to say, okay, I need to do this to make sure I have longevity, because he was doing injections, to keep the leukemia at bay. And they're like, at some point in time, the injections aren't going to work. It could be 2 years from now, it could be 10 years from now, but they're not going to work. So this is your next step. And he chose, all right, I'm going to do it. He was 46 or 45 at the time. It's like, cool, that's only 4 years older than me, God. So he's like, sure, I'll go through this, and that way I can have another 40 years. That was his whole thought process. And then it was a day. I mean, he was doing great one day, then he had the fever of 105 within just a 24-hour period, and dead 10 days later. So him coming home and laughing with me and just still joking around, because he had his full emotional self there. It's like he and I were whole. If he would have been coherent enough to recognize me being in the room, because I said that was my question. When you watch my origin story, it's like, what do you even know that I'm there? My mom said no, he wouldn't. It's like, okay, then I'm cool. If he would have known that I'm there, I still would not have gone for me. It would only have been if it would have helped him to be by his side. Because when he left, it's like we were cool.
Yeah,
we still are.
At that age, those images get imprinted. So it's like you don't want to remember that.
Yeah.
Well, I remember. I guess the reason why I ask is it's so interesting is because my grandmother passed away. What, 3 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago, something like that.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
It's, you know what, 95, it happens.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I always find it so interesting because I guess, I mean, Shelby asked me the question this morning. Is like, do you think he ever did? And I was like, well, you should ask him. And so my fault for ripping the thunder on that one, but
nobody's ever asked me before, and it's interesting.
See, look at that. That
actually surprises me.
Those are good questions.
Yeah.
That's why you ask those sorts of things, because you get to, care for somebody on a deeper level, I think.
Yeah, the camera's on the table.
For sure. Yeah. But I remember, he and I were always in a good place. It's I guess that would be my encouragement to anybody else, because you don't know what's going to happen. I know it's so cliche with any scenario. I mean, I could go out today and be in a car accident. I'm pretty confident that's not going to happen, but could it? Sure. So where are my relationships in my life with everybody else? Have I done everything that I possibly can in order to make sure I'm whole with that person? Mm-hmm. It's their responsibility to be whole with me, but I need to make sure that I'm whole with them.
Yeah. How do you do that? I mean, Rick, how does Rick?
Me?
Yeah.
There's I reflect every morning, and it's I was just talking about this on my own show the other day. Almost everything you see on my stories on Instagram, like the behind the scenes, when you see just the text that's up there, that's coming straight from me. That's not a copywriter. That's not a branding agency. That's straight from my thoughts. And it always happens in the morning when I'm eating breakfast. It's just something I've done. I'll tend to, my breakfast, I'm like a robot, man, when it comes to this. It's always spinach and egg whites and a light English muffin with like 2 tablespoons of grass-fed butter. It's a lot of butter. But those are that's my fats for the day, and it fuels my brain. I don't know if you've ever looked at the bulletproof diet stuff, but I just, how much I like coffee and espresso. I just can't put butter in my coffee. It's weird.
It's definitely odd. I'll let you know that right now.
Yeah, but the properties of the butter are great. But that's a squirrel for you. In the mornings, I'll reflect. Yeah, right on. I need a button for that. I reflect in the mornings, and I've had team members, I've had family, I've had friends, even strangers DM me and be like, dude, I think I met you at some point, but family will be like, are you talking to me? And then, some people will take it personally too. When I will post whatever it is that I post, they're thinking you're talking about me because we just had a conversation or something like that, or this is going on in my life and you know about it. I'm like, no, like I'm this is my time every single day to where I look inward. And what am I feeling? What's hitting me today? How can I reflect on myself? And what do I need to change now? And it's not every day, but it's about 5 days a week when I'll post something like that. And it's always things that are going on within me. So it's something for me to read. And it's like, sometimes I'll type some things and it'll just go just right out there in a matter of seconds. Other times it'll be, a sentence and another sentence, or it might even be just one sentence. And I'll put a read that again at the bottom of it, but that's actually me telling myself, dude, read this again, because this is for you right now. So I know if it's resonating with me, I know it's going to resonate with other people, but people will take offense to that too. So sometimes it even causes those frictions, but still I know I'm whole with that person because I'm just a dude. I'm just putting in what's hitting me right now.
Yeah.
So it's that reflection period, but then coming out of that, like, okay, it's not an every week thing or let alone even an everyday thing to where I'll be like, I need to make something right with some person today. Maybe I blew up at one of my kids yesterday, which I really don't do that, but maybe I took some things out of context with them, or somebody who works for me, or my wife, whatever. Who do I need to reflect with today and say, I kind of messed up a little bit yesterday, but I just wanted to let you know that I'm sorry and I'm going to move on for it. I found some ways, and I always think of what actions can I take to show that there's a change in behavior, because words are words, right? For me, words are super powerful, especially when they're my words and they go into myself. But words to other people don't mean as much without action.
Yes.
So what do I need to do? And so that's the question, is what action do I need to take? Or the answer to your question, what action do I need to take to make sure I'm whole with that person? Because then it's up to them to accept that or not. As long as I've done what I know that I need to do, or even ask them saying, hey, how can I make it right? And give them an opportunity to say, well, I make a request. Yeah, that's still being whole with that person. Even if they don't want to give you an answer or can't give you an answer, that's still being whole with that person from your side, to me, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's you saying, hey, look, I want to do something for you because I made a mistake.
Yeah.
Tell me anything and I'll give it a shot and I'll try.
Yeah, and you might hear the jet skis or the boats going by because we're actually outside.
Yeah.
Nice. I want to be where you are. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, super exciting. So
Chicago's gorgeous, but I'm in Fargo, North Dakota right now because I have two.
Oh,
two
hey there.
Here. Yeah. Yeah.
But I get super stir crazy and I like cannot be inside all day long. So
yeah. So we
feel you.
Doing it outside.
Yeah. Mark, how are you doing in the past 3 weeks since your grandmother passed?
That's a good question. Nobody's asked me that. No.
Yeah.
Hello.
I'm doing okay. I think that I had a trouble of, not thinking that I thought that I have not been a good enough grandson. So that was hard for me, of not reaching out enough or not being there for my father enough, or because it was my father's mom.
Yeah.
Or I remember Shelby and I went and visited her just like a week and a half, 10 days, 11 days, something like that before she passed away. We had a writer come up here, like a writer, fellow writer, come up here to the cabin to work on Nascence. Shout out Adam Briesman. He's another writer for the Nascence project. Very exciting.
He's very talented.
Very talented. And before we went and picked him up in Seattle, because we decided to drive over, we stopped by, and I remember tearing up and just kind of just taking the moment in. It's I couldn't really process it because it's not really connected very well. My emotions aren't really
testosterone.
It's hard for me. I can be pretty robotic sometimes if I have to, like, in order to try and be as stoic as possible and not have my emotions control me versus me controlling my emotions and me allowing myself, saying when it is the right time to delve into those emotions. But I remember that my grandmother asked me to sing, and it was hard for me to sing. But Shelby helped me along the way, and we picked a song together, and that was very nice. And then
awesome.
And I remember trying to sing as well, just a couple of days before she passed away. So that was nice too. So Shelby's been a rock there for me throughout the entire process, and I appreciate that very much.
You're welcome. I mean, that was more of a dying wish thing, because he.
Yeah.
Can I tell this part?
Sure.
Okay. Because he was mentioning he had felt like not the greatest grandson in the world, and he was kind of asking, like, what can I do? And she specifically said, well, don't talk, just sing. And so it was kind of like that was all that she wanted. And so
kind of like your thing of, if I had messed up in some weird way, all she wanted was for me to sing. So
yeah.
Oh,
I think that
you get me going. Very poetic.
You made that hole there.
Yeah.
I love it.
Very cool.
That's awesome. My grandmother passed when she was 93, and I officiated her funeral, the memorial service. Yeah. And it was,
what was that like?
It was really awesome. It was a phenomenal experience because it's, especially at that age, and of course there were more emotions when my dad passed, because I spoke at my own dad's funeral. And so when I was 16 years old and looking down, it's like, Dad, I'm not gonna, the things I remember, it's like, you were always there. Remember how I was talking about, it's like, hey, he won. Yeah, here's me looking at saying, I'm not gonna let you down, but then I realized later on in life, it's more like, I'm not gonna let myself down. That's the
Yeah.
proper way to look at it. But officiating the whole thing at my grandmother's funeral, because she was an amazing woman, and her sarcastic humor passed down to me. So her and I always got along really, really well. And we would sort of even gang up on my mom, her daughter, around that too, and just have some fun. My mom was the youngest of seven, one sister, six or five brothers, and three out of the five brothers were very sarcastic. So I would join with that team, and we would kind of poke fun at the rest of the team that was there. Looking back on her life when I was up there, it's like everybody was crying, and I'm like, all my memories with her are freaking awesome, and I start looking back, it's like, so I'm smiling as I'm officiating the ceremony. And part of my talk, I'll never forget this, because I started thinking, just putting myself in her shoes and thinking back, wow, because she was born in the 19 teens, it was like 1916, 1917. And she was 93 because she passed in 2009, I think is what it was. And I think it's like all the things that she saw in her life, it's just like a wealth of wisdom and experience, going through the roaring 20s as a kid. And then right when she becomes a teenager, it's the freaking Great Depression, and going through World War II. Yeah, it's crazy. Then the Cold War, then, Vietnam, Korea, I'm like seeing all this stuff, and then, the civil rights movement, and then the 70s come and disco. And I'm like, she probably could have lived without that, so I was even throwing some humor in there too, it's like she forgot about that part, she could have just passed right over the 70s and been okay. That's except for when I was born in 79, but looking back at all the memories was just incredible for me, because she was always there when she needed to be on holidays. I always saw her. My parents were the ones. And I hear what you're saying, Mark, from you thinking that, hey, could I have been a better grandson? Because my parents did a great job at keeping that connection going, to the point to where those rhythms and would still exist even after my dad died, or even after I moved out, continued to get older. I'd still make sure that I would connect with those rhythms that were established, around holidays, just to make sure that I saw her.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't miss and I always told her too, I'm like, you can't, here's the thing you have to promise me. I'm like, you can't die until you see my kids, until you see your great grandkids. With having 7 kids of her own, and there was a lot of divorces within her kids too. Dude, I got 31 first cousins, just on that side. And all of them have kids too. So her grandkids were like in the 40s, as far as the quantity of great grandkids that she had. But I was like, you just got to stick around long enough to see my kids. And I had forgotten about that, dude, because I would tell her that when I was like 18, 19 years old. And then I'm 27 when my twins come around. And she comes up to me and she goes, do you remember what you told me? I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, you told me that I had to stay alive until I saw your kids. It's like, so am I cool now? Are we good? I mean, her sarcastic humor, right?
That's great.
Like, I'm good to die now. Okay. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I like her.
Me too. But those are the memories I have of her, So I'm up there talking at her funeral. I'm like, guys, this is awesome. Take a look at all the amazing things she's done in life, And of course, I can't imagine that, because I'm the oldest of 3. I have 3 kids. The amount of attention and just the span and age difference between my mom, who was the youngest, and her oldest brother, who was like 23 years older, it's just, I mean, it's almost like constant pregnancy and constant toddlers, I feel, was what was going on in that household. Just you never had like phases of life. I feel like she was always stuck in the same phase, so to speak, because as soon as one person was a teenager, somebody else is entering kindergarten, and it just kept with that cycle for a long. It's crazy to think. But she was like the stability through all that. Like, this is amazing to look at what this woman has done. Is it sad that she's gone? Sure, because that presence will be missed. But at the same time, I'm like, for her to come up to me and be like, yeah, am I cool to die now? With her humor, as soon as my kids were born, like, yes, grandma, you're good to go, but that's that whole thing again that we were talking about, so you reaching out, Mark, and saying, hey, what can I do for you? Dude, I commend you for that, man. That's awesome. And then singing at her funeral, that's amazing.
Well, that would be a good idea. I think I might have to talk to my mom and dad and the rest of those kiddos, both my aunts to
I'm sure they would let you.
yeah, maybe they would. Maybe I should. I better start letting go of all the emotions in like a single room and like having my own personal breakdown to be able to do it. Like, okay, I got rid of all the tears and all the grief, and now I can just say, hey, by the way, entertainer here, like, don't you remember when
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's different because I mean, with my, like your grandmother was 95, mine was 93. My dad was 46 and died from an illness, or somebody like the car crash scenario that we're talking about. I know in those scenarios, you could feel like something was taken from you.
Sure.
At least I can imagine that, going through that myself. Even saying like, oh, I also hate the cliche. It's like, oh, they lived a good life. When they get to old age and they just die of natural causes, it's like, okay, cool, that's great, but can we actually focus on the awesomeness that was them rather than just saying this thing, because that's going to bring me joy.
That's right.
I'm still going to miss their presence, but if I focus on, like my grandmother, all the amazing times that we had, then I'm cool, and I can look back and it's like Shelby was saying, it's like some people were maybe born to die, but it's just different times. But that's my dad, right? Because I look at it, it's like, cool, if he hadn't, I don't know what I'd be doing if he hadn't died when I was 16. The amount of positive impact that's had on my life far outweighs the negative. As long as I can look at it that way.
Yeah, it depends on if you choose to look at it that way, because a lot of people still continue to live in that grief and live in that negative mentality, of negative mindset. I think that we should celebrate when somebody dies. Be like, yes,
right on. I want to party.
Yeah,
for real.
Yeah, let's party, man. Let's McAllen it up.
That's going to be on my last will and testament, that it has to happen, otherwise nobody's invited.
Yeah. Oh, my dad's already talked about how he's going to have conditions where like, this is how the will is going to be, and if you fight over it, you're out.
I like it.
Crazy stuff. Well, but you mentioned Great Depression, and that like instantly sparked in my brain everything that we're about to face. I know we're going through like a ton of inflation right now, but I've been reading books like The New Great Depression by James Rickards, talking about the bubble that we're in and just the things that we're about to face. And there are kids right now who were your grandmother's age who are about to be going into something like that. And I honestly would just love to hear your perspective about like what's to come and what people are doing, I guess.
There's you see the economy bouncing back, and I'm doing air quotes on that, right? And I was just looking at a graphic today, and this is another thing. I'm looking at that. Ooh, there we go. That's fun too. Ooh, I got different colors lights. Isn't that cool? I know there's stuff coming. I mean, I look at everything. I finally grew up about 6 months ago and got a subscription to the Wall Street Journal. It's something that I read every morning. I get a nice daily digest of all the news that's out there. This morning, you see that Bitcoin fell another 5.5% in the past 24 hours. Everyone that I've even interviewed on my show, especially when it was up at like $61,000, $62,000 a coin, was like, there's a correction coming. We don't think it's going to go back down to where it is. But then there's others that have been holding on to this stuff since 2009, 2010, and they've become billionaires this year. And I know someone who's like that lives in the Seattle area. And that's awesome, because he's been a believer the whole time. And of course, when he bought it for, 5 cents or whatever it is, this entire year has just been phenomenal for him.
Yeah.
Will it go back down to where it was? I don't know. I don't think that the economy itself is going to go back down to where it was like in a depression scenario. But Shelby, from your point, this is my own personal opinion. Nobody's really prepared, I feel, for what's about to come.
Yes.
Because there is a correction coming, and it's how you feel going into that. Because if, that phrase paycheck to paycheck and all that, there's a lot that I feel coming out of last year are in that scenario now. Not even necessarily by choice, just because of the job situation coming out of the pandemic. And now inflation is going up because at some point they think that supply is going to catch up with consumer demand, which could be next year. But at the same time, I doubt that the prices are going to go down.
Right.
I think the inflation that we see is going to stay, because it's an opportunity. Look at freaking Disneyland. Okay. They went from like $100 a ticket to $200 a ticket for just a day coming out of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And Bob Chapek, the CEO, which I don't necessarily agree with his principles on how to best serve these people, but he's making cutthroat, emotionless financial choices and being very stoic in his decisions and saying, well, we've found that this segment of people can pay more for our tickets, and that's all that we want to focus on. Because then if we eliminate people from the parks and keep the attendance down, we don't have to have as much labor, as many cast members there to actually service everybody. And maybe our lines will be shorter, but no, they won't, because we don't have as many people there, but still we're charging more for tickets, so everything is okay. So it's an interesting circular thought process that he has, but that's to say we're never lowering.
They're not telling you what's actually up. Of course, they wouldn't want to, because it's a business.
No, but Disney World too, from this, they found, because I've been a Disney Vacation Club member for 11 years. That's their timeshare program. And during the pandemic, you buy points, and then you use your points to stay at the luxury hotels that are there. It was actually a really good deal, because when I bought into it, I had it for like 43 years. And during the pandemic, when the first 6 weeks where I did nothing, and just stayed at home, my weekends were spent shopping for like Ferragamo shoes on sale and more Disney timeshares. That's how I spent my time on weekends. It wasn't great, closing on some small real estate and buying shoes. That was my weekends. But doing this, coming into this year, it's Disney World eliminated their annual pass program, because a lot of the annual pass holders were Florida residents, and they would just pop into the parks for an hour or two after work, just to ride something or do whatever, but they weren't really spending any money in the parks. So in order to stay afloat there too, they raised admission prices and started limiting, with this reservation system they have, a park reservation system, limiting when annual pass holders, the existing ones that still had them active, could actually go and visit the parks, because they controlled the flow of people for the capacity with the pandemic by saying we're only going to accept 50% of our capacity, but we have this pool over here for people that are paying cash and staying on property for their tickets, versus this people over here, this tiny little pool of availability for annual pass holders who, when they come into our parks, they spend next to nothing.
Right.
So they were prioritizing, and again, it makes sense from a financial decision, but then in that process too, you start to see the prices go up, because I was there twice during that time, and prices for food went up, the admission went up. My annual pass expired, so taking a look, same thing. It's like the single day tickets went from $100 something to, I think it was a 50% increase there, but Disneyland is doing like a 100% increase when they're letting people back in. And looking at the demographics, that most people that like to go to Disney World make $75,000 or less per year.
Wow.
Or Disneyland. But those that can afford to pay for these tickets are in like the 150K annual income and up. So they're eliminating this crowd that doesn't spend too much, right, and they're only catering to those who they feel will actually come into the parks and spend some more money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
it's revenue, they have models for it,
Exactly. Yeah. So you look at that
without any connected to it.
Yeah, none, zero. Exactly. So from Shelby's question, people aren't prepared for this kind of stuff. It's like, that was always even a staple for my family, is just escaping and going there. And then we couldn't, and things changed, and it just wasn't the same as it was before. So much has changed over the past year from a financial perspective, and just what we feel like we can even do for dollars and cents, that I don't feel a lot are going to be prepared in what's to come.
Yeah.
Because even as people continue to get jobs, that's great. Another thing I read in the journal is that unemployment, a lot of economists feel, is back to a quote unquote normal rate right now, whatever that means. But there's a shortage on labor still. It's hard to find people for jobs. I walk into a Starbucks today and they're closing at they're like temporary hours on Saturday, 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. when it was like 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. It's because they get people to work.
Yeah, I've heard it's because the unemployment checks, like they were adding so many stimulus dollars to it that people are making more money sitting at home. And
Yeah.
I actually have started getting spam phone calls of people asking me to work. Like this random company got my number and was like, "We have jobs, we're hiring, please call us back." So it's like now it's not just about your car insurance warranty. It's like people are trying to get you to work.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And now also the new, was it the American Dream Plan? I'm probably saying that wrong, but Biden's new stimulus thing.
One that you have
for
to believe in.
The what?
George Carlin joke.
It's a George Carlin joke. The American Dream.
Oh,
You have to be asleep to believe it.
yes, there you go. I didn't hear what you said. You broke up for a sec. That's awesome. This is it's a child stimulus for people with children, and you're going to get anywhere from $2,500 to $3,200 a year per kid. That's going to be paid out monthly.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like between $250 to $300 a month per child that you have. I think up to 4 kids that you're just going to continuously get money every single month for the next year.
Who's paying for that?
I know, right on.
Yeah.
You know, so it's all the spending that's still happening. But Shelby, to your point, it's like, cool. That's not going to last forever. So next year, when inflation is here to stay and all that stuff goes away, then what do people do?
Sounds like it's all about creating dependency.
Yeah, there's that thought.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm from a very like people are worried about population perspective. So I've always been like, you know, we should pay people to keep it down. Like like giving people more money per kid is like there's so much wrong with that. I don't even want to. I could rant.
With the pandemic, it was like, why are we addressing the real problem here?
Yeah.
You know, because it's if you get more I'm tracking with you, I think. If you get more money as you have more kids from the federal government, but when you have more kids, you're more financially strained. So why did you have more kids in the first place?
Yeah.
You know, from family planning. But then with COVID, you know, the University of New York did this study to where it was like, of course, the single greatest cause of morbidity was age. If you were over the age of 80, it was like 11%. So it was like pretty much 1 in 10, you're just dead.
Mm-hmm.
If you catch it when you're over the age of 80. But the second greatest factor of morbidity was obesity. And that because it was, by nature, it's an inflammatory disease. It causes the tissue in your lungs to inflame, and that's why you can't breathe. So if you're already inflamed because of the amount of fat that's in your body,
protoplasm.
Yeah, this was the study that they did, right? And I'm thinking back because I was that dude. I was this large thing that was walking around.
You were,
and it wasn't even. Yes, I was inflamed. But so to your point, it's like, why not educate around family planning and financial planning? You know, also educating, like with the pandemic, educating around nutrition, you know, and the right ways to treat your body so that you don't have that risk, or you don't have any other risk that it can bring on, you know, because that's really like the secondary condition, isn't it? Because they were saying like, here's COVID, but there's all these other underlying conditions. Well, obesity causes high blood pressure, heart disease, and just a myriad of other things. And that's why people were dying. You know, this was just data.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and then also
just data.
Like, the sanitizing stuff. Like when COVID first hit, I hadn't lived in California long enough to get unemployment, but I'd lost all of my work. And I was like, I really don't want to like blow all my savings. So I got a survival job with Instacart to buy people's groceries. And there were people ordering me to buy like 20 cans of Lysol. And it's like, do you know what's in that? That's not good for you. You shouldn't be breathing all of that all the time. Like that's gonna be worse for you in the long run than the damn virus. So yeah. It's just like we really have like you're so right. We have an education problem with our health. Like,
and that's why people need to watch Liberty Lockdown.
Yes.
Right on. That's definitely around the government problems. Yes.
Well, let me ask: if you were the president, if you were in charge, you met the president. Have you met Biden this year?
No, have not yet.
Did you meet Obama or Trump at all?
No, I've never met any sitting president. Isn't that crazy? I've met deputy defense secretary, and the deputy secretary of defense.
Well, because I know cybersecurity, obviously.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Don Trump Jr. I did at the Trump Hotel last year.
Oh, nice.
Because he was when I was at the White House last year, he was one of the ones that was really advocating for the project that I was on with AI and human trafficking.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, we should definitely get into that.
Well, that's a huge thing we're talking about nearly enough. I mean, we were in Oregon. Yeah, we were in Eugene, Oregon, and we were meeting with this restaurant owner who was like, "Oh yeah, I got to stay off the 5. The trafficking problem is ridiculous."
Yeah.
Why is not more people talking about this?
Well, and that's why we talk about it in Nascents.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But if you were president, let's say that you're president, let's say that you're running the country right now. What are some changes that you would want to see? What's it like? Just a very simple fix, a simple change that, some people aren't really going to find it to be so great, but it's for the greater good. What do you think that one thing would be?
Those are the biggest questions, aren't they? For the greater goods. And there's no emotion that I think that can be taken out of that, because any decision is going to be a tough decision. And I would stop the stimulus. That's the biggest thing, because I'm like you, Mark, the government spending that's going on right now, your question of, well, who's going to pay for it? And that's been,
why pay taxes if we're just printing money?
Yeah, exactly. There's the other thing would be healthcare, because we noticed this past year that obviously Obamacare doesn't work. I mean, we've known that for the longest time, that it doesn't work. And I actually appreciated, I've been listening to a podcast recently, Renegades, with Bruce Springsteen and Barack Obama. It's a pretty cool show. It's because even though my political views differ hardcore from Barack Obama on a lot of things, it's still, I see him as being a real person, so back to that, what was real, amazing dad, I felt that he really wanted to do what was right, at least in the context of what he felt was right. And he knew that healthcare needed to be fixed. It was his platform. That's cool. But moving to, this is funny, because I side note, right? North Dakota, the government of North Dakota sent me a summons the other day because I have team members that are in North Dakota, and their workers' comp program. This has to do with the healthcare and the president stuff, by the way, so bear with me here. But when I hired people that live in North Dakota, the government there does not allow private insurance companies to provide workers' comp insurance. You have to go through a state-run workers' comp program.
Why?
I have no idea. And being such a Republican-leaning red state, it blew my mind, because that's probably like one of the most socialist things you can do is centralize insurance. But that's Obamacare too, and that's the link that I'm making with this, But I feel, because if you look at Canada, just to the north of us, and their issue with even getting the vaccines out to people with the Moderna and the Pfizer, they're waiting 8 to 12 weeks to even get their second dose. And there's only like 37 million people in the whole country. But it's like, hey, we got free healthcare. Well, no, you're still paying taxes. There's still money that's paying for that. But could there be? Yeah, exactly. Could there be a combination of these things? Because with America, we're all about free trade. We're all about capitalism. We're all about choice, right? So if it came, not recently, yeah. What we're supposed to be about, what we were founded on.
Right.
So outside of the government spending side, I would also say that the healthcare scenario that I can see, and I'm not the smart person, I would find smart people to figure this out, but my theory is saying we do need something centralized to an extent, because of the state of income difference and gap that exists in the country. But unlike the state of North Dakota, why would you want, or Obamacare, why would you just want to exclude that entirely or make private insurance fit into this mold if people have the choice and they want to make that choice to get insurance for themselves through whatever means
money
they want to?
Private insurance, they probably don't pay government as much as if you actually had a government run where the government gets either double taxes or gets the money more. It's all about the government is a
everything's about that
entity.
Well, to the money point, the biggest thing that I've gone, wait, what's going on, is not only all of the free vaccines, but the vaccine incentives.
Show us your card and you get a free donut. Back to the obesity thing, right? Show us a card at McDonald's, you get a cheeseburger.
Or free beer, or you get entered into $1 million.
Like,
where is this all coming from?
Yeah.
What idiot marketing campaign manager thought that up?
No, I think it's a genius marketing campaign.
But
of course,
we're gonna be like,
but not for the
free beer,
not for the greater good though. So that's why I'm saying, you idiot.
Well, I don't know if the marketing guy was the idiot, but it's more just like, I saw that as like, if this is going to be something that's just so good for herd immunity and so good for everybody, why do you need to incentivize it?
Yeah.
I think it's just do and then ask for forgiveness later.
Yeah. Well, that's how we always are, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can't remember the last president we had when we actually had a balanced budget. It's been a while.
Yeah.
What was that, Clinton?
My brain had a bunch of
yeah. Well, he operated. That's right. He operated in a surplus state for a lot of years. Yeah, and that was phenomenal. I mean, we're in that age. I mean, like Shelby, like you're talking, everybody going into next year is not really going to know what's going to hit them from inflation and from moving into, if it's a depression or a greater recession. That we'll see how deep that goes. I still feel like we're in a time, especially in my field, cybersecurity, right? Clinton had the internet, right? And that's what bolstered a lot of the economy during that time period, is that the internet was born, which is crazy to think about that it's been that long at this point, but it didn't exist. Yeah. And then now we have this cybersecurity age, because everything's moving from what we're doing right now, what's moved into this, versus actually having to sit in front of people. And there's so many new opportunities with the economy there's even coaching classes on negotiation specifically over Zoom, and virtual negotiation and sales process now. It's a different world where you can get things done faster and you can get things done more efficiently. So what are we doing to create that? But I've always also been one to say, like an IKEA warehouse or an Amazon warehouse, the ones that are going totally robotic, sweet, because that's taken the spots of people that used to work there. And I'm saying sweet because it's a good thing. Like, oh no, they're going to be out of jobs. Well, this is an evolution point to where they can actually learn a new skill set.
Yeah. It's going to be like Shenzhen, where people are actually becoming more millionaires because they're learning better skills instead of having to be a cashier at a grocery store.
Right.
Yes, exactly. So, and that's why we see, the disappearing of the middle class too, in my opinion. So from a government perspective too, maybe this is a third thing, because education is always a thing for me, especially with my kids and seeing all the stupidness that's taught in public schools. And then seeing my almost 14-year-olds now, because they've been in an online private school for 3 years, writing business plans and saying, hey, Dad, can you invest? Because I'm thinking about this franchise bakery idea, or I'm thinking about this YouTube channel. I'm thinking about this app that I want to develop.
Yeah.
It's this lessening of the middle class is, I feel, and this is the for the greater good, and saying the straight truth, is by choice. Because like those robotic warehouses, the ones that are choosing not to learn new skills, they're going to make less money.
Yes.
Yep.
Learn how to fix it.
They're going to be out of jobs forever.
Yeah, you got it.
Well, that's what I said with like the voiceover guys, like learn how to voice the robots.
Yeah.
Well, be an entertainer, because not many people, I mean, I wrote a bit called Stand Up Robots, and it talks about how like there's going to be like robots out there that create like bits and stories and one-liners, and the dude is going to lose their job, but they're worried about something that somebody said that made them feel like they were being like, oh my gosh, I was offended, like the whole like quote unquote snowflake thing, versus they're not worried about the priority of their job is being taken over by a robot. If that's going to disappear, and I know that's going to disappear, what is it now? There will be a niche market always for those sorts of things, but what is it now that I need to focus on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier, of the presence.
Yeah. Well, my dad's worked for IBM my whole life, basically. And so he was always always growing up, he was always like, you need to go into computers and everything to do with like the internet and security and everything, or entertainment, because those are going to be the last to go.
Yeah.
Like those are going to be the last things that robots can actually take over. So you need to learn all that stuff. And I just thought that was so interesting. But I actually wanted to ask you, like with cybersecurity and everything that you're doing, with how much we've now gotten Clubhouse, and more people are on TikTok and on their Instagrams and YouTubes and on Zoom talking about probably things that they think are super private, but they're on like a company's
you're like, yeah, sure. Like we watch it right now, you know.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like to the extent that you can talk about it, or the Alexas in your homes. Like, what has really like changed during the pandemic that people should be aware of?
Yeah, what scared the shit out of you?
That you can actually talk about. I know there's probably elements of your job that you can't, but
which is why
things that the things that we'll see how, because I use an iPhone, right? And we'll see how. Ooh, that's fun. My reservation was confirmed for dinner. Hey. Yeah, happy day. That's why I put it on Do Not Disturb, because I get excited over food.
Squirrel.
I know. What I see, I found it'll be interesting to see what Apple does, because Apple and Facebook are in this war right now over privacy. And there's a difference. One of my talks is from stage. It's about a 20-minute talk. It's about the difference between privacy versus security. And security is controlling what's on the inside. If you think of like a room or a castle or something like that, security is controlling what's outside your castle walls from getting in, versus privacy is controlling what's already inside, exactly, from getting out. So it's those two directions. And security wise, everything's locking down. That's fantastic. You see the hacks that are going on. Of course, that's always going to be a tug of war. Who's moving faster, who can put the right measures in place to stop it, who can put the right measures in place to respond after somebody already gets in to kick them back out. Privacy is somewhat of a choice, because if you look at Facebook, they've been doing this for years, and of course they have to disclose it. A lot of stuff they didn't disclose, which is the problem. But Apple's even been in trouble for this too, with Siri, and sending, anytime you say, "Hey Siri," and let's see if she responds. Sometimes she does when I'm on a show. They've been sending full audio clips, prior to about 2 years ago, to Apple headquarters to be reviewed for accuracy. At least that's what they say. That way they can make Siri more accurate.
So what contracts do they have with government agencies?
Yeah, exactly. And now, at one point in time, Apple was not disclosing information to the FBI because they were a public stance against all of that. But now you start to see that they are disclosing some things to the FBI. Yeah. Facebook discloses almost everything they can, so that's a privacy concern. But with iOS 15 that's coming out, there's more privacy transparency that Apple is putting into place to go against people like Facebook. But you ask, this is along Facebook lines too, you ask what's one thing that really freaks me out, because I only really use Siri to ask about the weather today. I don't use it any other way, but she's always listening, just like Alexa is always listening. So if I'm talking about something that I have never Googled in my life, I always use this example. I was supposed to go meet President Jimmy Carter about a year and a half ago, and he lives out in like the middle of nowhere, Alabama. You have to fly into Atlanta, then drive across the border and go into the sticks and try to find where this dude is at a church. I wish I was making that up, but that's exactly what it was. I was supposed to go meet him at this church just to say hi, a photo op, all that. But it was recommended to acquire these scamper vans. I don't know if you've ever seen those, but they're vans that if you look them up, you can see, it's not like a Mercedes Sprinter, but almost like a Mystery Machine, Scooby-Doo style thing, to where you can hop in. There's a bed in there, a little kitchenette. They look somewhat comfy, but I'm like, I'm not going to do that. That's not me. I'm from Chicago. I'm a city dude. There's no way I'm getting in a scamper van thing. This was over a conversation where it was recommended to me, not searching online. I opened up Facebook right after that conversation, ad for a scamper van.
Yeah. Oh, I use it to my advantage sometimes. Like if I can't find something, I'll just talk into it repeatedly about that thing. Works every time. Works every time.
I'm anti people using your information and not compensating you for it.
Yeah.
Your data is worth a lot of valuable dollars.
And that's why if you remove it, it pisses them off, because that's how they make money, that and advertising and all this other stuff. What are those people? What do you think that like Zuckerberg and Gates and Bezos? I don't know if you're friends with these guys, because of course, you know, you got cybersecurity. So, I mean, are you friends with Zuckerberg? Are you friends with Gates? Are you friends with Bezos? Are you friends with their people and their security detail?
No, not from their side, because I'm sort of anti a lot of what they do. You know, I'm more on the side of Apple. And when you get into the higher ranks of government, there's the agencies there too. They don't like to share information. So it's interesting because it's more of like a pride thing.
Yeah, it's
you know,
like
and
pride.
yeah, exactly. I see that as such an inverse of big tech, because they all share everything, because to your point, that's how you make the money. And there's guys like Naveen, which we both know, Naveen Jain, and I'm friends with his crowd because they're much more into privacy and they're much more into doing things that are humanitarian to help the people. Yeah, and his data I know is not shared anyways, and I don't think you can get as big of tech as you can, or bigger anyways, from Naveen. I mean, the guy pretty much invented the entire .com era that existed back with InfoSpace back in those days. You know, but still, the data that he's able to do, it's so crazy, because I remember that, because he is the product of my Viome, right? And thinking about using the data, exactly, thinking about using the data for a greater cause, because as you test your poop to find out what's going on in your guts, they were actually able to tell before most agencies were if you had COVID or had COVID, if you have it or had it. Yeah, and this was going on pre-pandemic last year, or see if you're even predisposed because of your microbiome to actually get more of a severe illness from it.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was so intriguing, but because of the government laws that existed and because of his propensity not to share data like that, they couldn't really do anything with it. Because of the scenario, at least from what I was told, because they would violate HIPAA regulations in order to share this data with the governments or share with other big tech, versus you've got guys like Facebook and, you know, Zuckerberg and Bezos, to where they're sharing data all over the place for these things. I mean, look at Prime Day going on right now as we're talking. You know, I'm seeing stuff pop up on that, and it's great because I get sucked into good deals all the time, especially when it comes to scotch or coffee. Those two things I really get sucked into. But everything that's popping up on my Prime Day feed is the same thing based on data. You know, so there's legislation that's being proposed right now to break up Amazon. I don't know if you saw that recently, you know, because they even acquired Whole Foods, obviously, a couple years ago.
MGM.
And yeah, they're doing so much, and they just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But where does that stop? Does it need to stop is the question right now. And I don't even know if Bezos even really understands exactly what's going on anymore in the organization, because it's so big.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Well, this was a point I brought up like a year ago, because I noticed so many people being furious when that article came out that he was poised to become the first trillionaire, about how Amazon had created this monopoly that was destroying small business, but go vote for Biden. And I was like, do you guys even know what socialism is? Communism is the monopoly that will destroy your small business. Like, that was a small point of. Anyway, we can segue away from that. I just needed to make that point.
I like that, though. I know, that's great. But that's kind of a lot what big tech is, you know. So the cybersecurity that I like to focus on are things that exist in small business, you know, because that's you want to call it helping the underdog, sure, but there's a whole blue ocean that exists there from a budget perspective, because obviously it all comes down to money. Enterprises like an Amazon or a Google or an Apple, they've got entire teams for this. They have the budget for this. But then you have this gap that exists because they're kind of doing it the right way. I say kind of because they do what they know and they dedicate money to it. Small business, SME, I'm talking like sub 100 million a year revenue, which is most businesses that we work with on a daily basis. Any business that's in your town is obviously in that. A lot of manufacturers are in that pool too. They have a lot of intellectual property. that exists, which people like China will come over and steal. And as your little side note, because Shelby, you were talking about kids and everything, I saw China also is now allowing families to have 3 kids, and they upped it from 2 because communist country. But the reason why, and this comes back to like the stealing of intellectual property, they're seeing a boom 10 years from now. They're planning for the population 10 to 15 years from now because they're going to need more factory workers. This is the government, and I've had individuals that have been there with products to where they've had their product line being produced in a factory in China, and they're out there just visiting to watch it. But then literally like 6 feet away on the other side, well socially distanced, you like that joke, was stuff that looked identical to what was their product line. Like, oh, those are mine too. Oh, no, those are ours. So right in the same factory, they're ripping off American intellectual property.
Yeah.
Over in China. So that's where but that's a small manufacturing company. That's at sub $100 million that I'm talking about, to where that stuff can just get sucked overseas. So it's a shift in the wealth of economics from one superpower to another superpower in the world. And that's cybersecurity. So helping those little guys and making things more, that's why one reason I'm going public too, is because I need to make this dominator in the space in order to actually allow the economics of scale to bring some of those things that cost more money right now in cybersecurity down to the levels where we need them for the American public. It's a high and lofty goal, but I'm the first one to do it in this space for small and medium enterprise, to get the first managed service provider to ever have a public offering. There's 142,000 of us that exist, meaning actual companies that exist in the United States, and I'm the first one to do it, to have this public offering. That's fine. Let's have some more. Hopefully it'll spark a flame to say, we're acquiring X amount of these sporadic ones across the US over the next couple of years to make this larger thing that can hopefully help the sub $100 million small medium enterprise market to protect the stuff that they have, which will protect our economy in this country.
Well,
and maybe in the process,
$1,000, how do I invest like now?
Yeah.
Right.
I've got another show I'm going on cybersecurity for divorce coming up as a thing I'm doing today. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Fighting over the online intellectual property in divorce court.
It's a lot of that, but it's Rebecca Zung. She's a lawyer, a divorce lawyer, one of America's top 50 attorneys out of LA. And she shifted she still practices law, but now she educates individuals around narcissists and divorce.
I love it.
Because
great. Man, we could have fun digging deep with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we sure can. That's what we're doing. But how to protect yourself, because, separate things like bank accounts, email addresses, those kinds of things, because every piece of information becomes leverage in your case.
Yeah, that's right. I think the main thing is don't be a jerk to another person, and you don't have to get divorced.
Yeah. Well, that sparked like this whole thing of, I've noticed sometimes like you're on Instagram and somebody's being a creep, so you block them. And this actually just recently happened to me. They made a new account to come follow you again. And it's like, how do you actually protect yourself from stuff like that? Or like if somebody blocks you because they're like afraid you're going to block them, so now they can unblock you whenever they want and see all your stuff, but you have no power to keep them away from your stuff. Like, how in the world it's that?
It's a lot of energy. I have a team and a branding agency that manages a lot of that, but even I'll come up. So a lot of what I don't get very many trolls now. That seems to go through waves. I'll get a lot of trolls and then they'll go down to nothing. I don't know if you've experienced the same thing, but then they seem to have an uprising in trollage.
Lizards that follow me, but
yeah. More so what I get are fake accounts that are spoofing me, impersonating me. So that's most of what we see, but it's always, just slightly different in the name and the handle that's there. I've had one person, I put this up on one of my talks on security versus privacy. Actually, I use Bezos in this example too, because he was hacked in WhatsApp. And WhatsApp is owned by Facebook. It's not secure. It's not private. They use that information to target you for ads. So if you use WhatsApp, which is used all across the world, really, that's how Bezos got hacked. What's that?
Even though it's encrypted.
Yeah, it is encrypted, but that's the whole thing, is that your information is inside the walls of Facebook, so they can see everything that you're doing. So when you send it from one WhatsApp device to another WhatsApp device, that security from the outside, people can't see what's there. But since you're all living in that same Facebook castle, Facebook can see what's going on, and they can target you for ads that way. So is it secure? Yes. Is it private? No. Right. Bezos got hacked because of the problem with the privacy that exists from WhatsApp. Then where were we going? I lost my train of thought now. Where were we talking
sorry,
about?
I interrupted. I apologize.
No, I just meant protect yourself.
Yeah, trolls.
Yes, trolls. That's it. Yeah, but I've had individuals start conversations using WhatsApp, and this is to extort money from people that are overseas or whatever. You know, I still have screenshots. One was using my face and all of my posts, you know, to portray this thing, and named himself like Justin Cohen or something like that. But then engaged with one of the followers of that account to say, hey, I promise you and your son, you know, they start to social engineer them. They're living in South America somewhere, saying, I'll bring you to the United States. Yeah, you just have to, you know, I have some money difficulties right now, or my money's tied up in my IPO, because all this is public information about me. Yeah. So I can get you here sooner if you just start sending these things, and I can start with the immigration attorney and pay that, because I'm not allowed to touch my cash right now because of the public offering that I'm doing. You know, and people fall for this, unfortunately. You know, so then somebody found my real account. This person found my real account, and the first DM that I got was, "Are you effing crazy?" Like, I saw this one person. I'm like, I'm sorry, you know, what's going on? So then they start sending me all these screenshots of this fake account of mine. And then they send me screenshots of their WhatsApp conversation. And at that point, it's like
fake account. How did you handle it?
Oh my gosh.
Exactly. So there's nothing that I can do in that state. I can just say, you know, my team looked up information and tried to find out who it was. I'm like, this person was in this town at this point, because we can trace the IP address and everything. And there's access to databases that my team maintains for these exact purposes, to find people, especially on the human trafficking side, because I love to find where the traffic victims are being kept, so that we can mount legit rescue missions, you know, go in and raid homes. It's awesome. You know, but that's
love that.
I do too. You know, we're filming a sequel to the cybercrime documentary, and my part is that I'm going in the tunnels in Vegas to find those individuals, just to show really what happens.
Man, I would go on that. I would so help.
Oh yeah. I'm like, how do I get it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember Brad Lee was like, yeah, how do I help you with that? Like,
yeah, exactly. Yep. But that's where it starts, from the cyber side, right? And that's why I was in the White House last year, because of things like this with this person, you know. And this, the sad part is, this mom and the son, you know, probably both would have been trafficked. Yeah. That was likely the motivation of this individual. First, they were extorting money, but then when they were able to bring them over, you know, because I've heard stories like this with organizations I work with, is even if the son doesn't come over, they'll bring the mom over, traffic her, and then go back and give them just a little bit of the money to be like, if you want to keep going, or if you don't want us to come after your kid, you have to come back and keep making these trips. And now they're also smuggling drugs in addition to being trafficked, and they just don't understand how to get out. And that all can stem from somebody creating a fake account with my image on it.
So a lot of negative stuff coming from a simple scheme.
Yeah. And it's all human stuff. It's all social engineering. Yeah. And there's no way from my side to stop this, except when the account is discovered, report it. Every time it's reported, it's always within minutes, if not seconds, that account's removed. You know, once it's brought to our attention. So that's the biggest, again, it's education. It's like, if you see something a little off, just verify that this person is the person you say. There's ways to do that, you know, have them freaking FaceTime them or WhatsApp video call them, you know, to make sure it's actually that person's face. You know, if they can't, then they can't. They were even sending like workout pictures of me that I was posting on my story or something like that. And the guy was like, yeah, I just hit the gym today. You know, but it's a photo of me from like a hotel in Atlanta or something like that.
That's crazy.
I know, right? Yeah, exactly.
My like general DMs on Instagram are full of just Instagram user where the account was clearly taken down after like messaging me at some point. And
Yeah.
it just boggles my mind. Well, and I wonder, does this come from a general naivety of like the lack of the education we get here of what a scam looks like? Or does it come from like a language barrier? Like, I wonder what is actually, or just like the genuine deep desire to get out of their country. Like, I wonder what actually gets so many people.
And is this something that we should hire Reach Out for, or go to Reach Out?
For sure. People like to play on fears, but yes, this is something that Reach Out can help with, of course. But it's from a small medium enterprise perspective, like I was talking, which is Reach Out's target. It's protecting the intellectual property. So the scams that I would focus on for business is phishing attempts. It'll be like the accounts payable invoice that says, hey, you need to wire this money. So the hacker's already inside the network, spoofs an email from the owner to the accountant to the bookkeeper and says, pay this vendor, when really it's a hacker that generated that email. So just an example from last week was something like $258,000. Was this thing, and said the owner, it came from the owner in air quotes within their own system, and to this other person, I think her name was Cindy, and said, Cindy, go ahead, this invoice is approved, go ahead and pay it, wire the funds. So it's smart processes like anything over $10,000, which we put in place at this it's human common sense stuff, right? It wasn't a technology solution. It was human solutions that we put in place at the bank. So this is what you need. If you want, you get to pick the threshold, but pick the threshold that you want to have double authorization for any wire transfers. They chose $10,000. That's the only thing that stopped this. So even with all the prevention that you could possibly have, you will still get breached. And this is a client of Reach Out too, to where the hacker got inside the network because a human being let them in. They clicked on a link that they shouldn't have and let them in. Now, we send out fake emails all the time to try to test their knowledge and find the weakest link that they have and be like, see Bob over there? He's always clicking on everything that he gets.
Yeah.
So you either educate him or you fire him, because he's a liability right now.
So you're saying that a human sitting behind a computer on a certain network clicks a link, opens it up, that lets the hacker into that network.
You got it. Then they establish the foothold. And this is the crazy thing. So this phishing attempt, right, was initiated within their network from on their own email system, which they're using Microsoft Office 365. In order to understand the flow of communication that has to happen, they would have had to study them for weeks, if not a couple of months, to look at all the email exchanges between everybody in the organization to see what type of flow happens, and know that the owner would email an authorization to the bookkeeper to send out the wire transfer, that it has to go from the owner to this employee to let the bank know to do this. They were already on for several months. And that's because this person who let them in, it looked like a real site when they clicked on that link in the email for Microsoft Office, entered their real password, but it was a hacker site, and they siphoned that password off.
Yeah.
So you'll get things like from PayPal, you'll get it from Facebook that says, hey, we have a security breach, we just need to verify your password. Yeah. Nobody will ever ask you to verify your password that via an email, but it looks legit when it comes in. I had something come in today, from healthcare.gov, talk about Obamacare, right? And this was our own system. So I even get tested. We're testing ourselves, even within Reach Out, to make sure our people are there. So I see this and I don't know, I'm not even involved in these social engineering tests that we do. I see it and it says, your coverage ends June 30th or something like that. Complete your application. So I open it up, I'm like, yeah, this is one of ours, but it looks perfectly legit. You click on any of the links in there, it's going to take you to a site that looks like healthcare.gov. And if you have an account already, you enter your email address and your password, and that's probably the same password you use to get into your corporate systems. So that now the hackers have that combination, and they can go test that combination against anything else that they know about you.
Yeah.
Now that they're in the system, they can produce these emails and say, hey, wire $258,000. So then the human element is, we're going to set up with your bank. This is something that Reach Out does. You need a threshold for double authorization for wire transfers. What do you want? They chose $10,000. Perfect. So guess what? The $258,000 never went out because of this very human process that Reach Out put in place that had nothing to do with technology.
That's awesome.
I think it's just exciting and fun. I think
it is fun. When I was being trained by the CIA on the civilian side as a contractor, yeah, I know. Come on. Surveillance and elicitation were the areas that I was trained in. But we would run things called surveillance detection routes, to where we'd walk into a doctor's office, and I kid you not, it was so easy to get into the empty office of a doctor with a USB stick. And this was a real doctor's office. So we had to go in and just talk our way into the office. That was one of the things. And it's interesting in how many things people will believe. So you come up with stories, you listen for like statements, and then almost like it's like, yeah, but today is my daughter's birthday. It's like, if you don't have a daughter, you're making up a daughter on the spot just to form that bond and talk with them and be like, yeah, I spoke with Dr. Joe the other day, and oh, he's not in right now. That's okay. He's coming back in 10 minutes. Cool. Can I just wait in his office for him because we have a meeting coming up? It's that simple. And you walk in there, and of course they leave, I mean, HIPAA violations, right? They leave their computers completely unlocked, and you can just siphon off all the patient records that exist on that entire medical practices systems. But that's humans. You know, the way to get through the gatekeeper is always just a conversation, whether it's over email, in person, text message, whatever, it's always the conversation.
Yeah, I was just reading about this, like somebody posted on, I think, BuzzFeed, that was like life hacks, like call companies and say, I want to confirm my interview for tomorrow at 2, and you'll get an interview even if you never had one.
Yeah.
It's just like,
this is the part, you're right. This is the fun part of it.
Yeah.
You know, it's the very real scary part, but it's also the fun part of it. It's like, we're just going to teach you and educate you, almost kind of like COVID and obesity, right? We're going to teach you about cybersecurity and hacks and what the real way to protect yourself.
That's really cool. It's something that I like think about very briefly, but now I feel like I could think about it in depth.
But then we can productize something that's just plug and play at some point too, just to help out, because you still need that.
Oh yeah. I think it'll be a consistent thing. You know, it's like that top of the mind situation.
Yeah.
If you're not staying on somebody's mind, they'll tend to forget to do it, or like it's like, what is it? 2 years out of college, you forget 80% of the information or something like that.
And you open a coffee shop.
There you go.
Yeah. I know that we're wrapping up here in just a couple of minutes, but I wanted to really know, like, what is it that people can do for this IPO? What is it that we can do for Reach Out? What is it that Reach Out is really, you know, hoping, like a really lofty goal, that if people just start believing it more, that people would jump on board and be a part of your team, or at least promote you and promote your product, and basically just how is it that people can help you? How can we help you?
Yeah, keep right now, because of the stage we're in, we've already completed a pre-IPO funding round, and it's been an education process for me, because again, nobody in this industry has done this before. But we raise cash to raise more cash, and raising more cash is to acquire other companies. And even the conversations I'm having right now are to that spirit, Mark, is getting people involved, even the owners. It's like, cool, you know, because we're targeting between companies that make between 500,000 a year and 5 million a year in top line revenue. You know, that's how much they're bringing in, and giving them the hope of a brighter future being part of this larger group. Giving them, if they want to stay on, they can have a job within the organization, of course, you know, some sort of leadership role, even at some point in time. But even better is that they can pay their mortgage, right? This isn't going to be a fluctuating thing for the general public either, kind of like crypto is, or the general stock market, because like Shelby was saying, this is always going to be here. And the need for it just continues to rise too. So the thing that they can do is follow my personal brand site, rickjordan.tv, and then subsequently reachoutit.com. But we're posting a lot of the news around what I'm doing and where the IPO is at right now on rickjordan.tv. And you'll see more of that hit social, because we're at the point of back and forth with the SEC right now, to where they just ask questions, and then once we're approved as a public company, then we can actually put the offering out. And it's going to be on a platform that we haven't determined yet. We've got 3 people vetting it right now. And just follow the websites for the time being. as this goes public later this year, you want to get in on it, because the dollar per share is going to be so low. And as we continue to grow, these are things that I really want to do for this country, for North America, and then as we span globally too, is transition from business-oriented products and services into things that you can even plug in your house to protect you. Maybe stop these things from happening in the first place, at least as much as we can.
I love that it's all about security.
Yeah,
for you.
it is.
It's all about,
so there's a lot of heart in this. Investors that want to jump on board. There's a big one that I was just talking with this past week that I can't say who it is, but they were asking for too much equity in the company, and I'm not afraid to walk away from the deal, because they were just looking to make their money, which an investor should, of course.
Yeah,
but the motive around this, one of my board members is like, there's good money and there's bad money to take on with some, and that but especially in the filmmaking project, the bad money is that they're not bought into your vision.
Yes.
They're only in it to make their buck and get out.
Or
but that's not going to be
in some weird way.
Yeah.
That takes away from the vision of what it was.
Yeah,
we got it.
We pulled offers because people didn't see the vision, and we were like, we don't want to work with you.
Yeah. Yeah, with Nason's thing, we're like, no.
Yeah.
I feel you. The private investors, if they're looking at it, I mean, anyone can put in, I think the top is 2 million right now is the max that we're taking in from any individual investor, because that comes down to the control stuff, like you were talking, Mark. Yeah. But that's somebody who really, really wants to see the vision and see this thing through. Because in 2 years, God, our valuation is going to be huge, but that's going to allow us to move to the next phase and keep going with this. So money's an indicator, of course. What your market cap is an indicator of where you're at, but it also opens up more options. So we've got a certain pace over the next 2 years, but then when we reach a certain market cap, that pace can accelerate even faster. Because now there's even more options to help more people to get different products, different services out there that don't even exist yet.
That's right. So you need some idea people.
I sure do, man.
Yep. We are hired.
Perfect. I was hoping for that today.
See, that's what most people miss. Like, if I tell people like, what do you need? Like, how can we help? That is what I do. We are the idea people, because when you talk about your passions, and also I think that you'll get more ideas and further in with what you're doing now if you bring that real element to just straight up front, instead of talking about the business. Or because for myself, I worry about the money. Like I used to, I still do, unfortunately.
We're working on it. Yeah,
we're still working on it. But say it's like, okay, I need this number in order to, like you said, the seed money in order to raise the rest of the investment. We talked to an investor yesterday about our project. They're like, if you get this A-list attached or this, secure 20%, we'll fund the whole thing. It's like, okay, cool. Now we know that we can go and do stuff like that. But they don't really care unless we care. Like, you don't care about what we're up to unless we care about what you're up to. and
you got it.
Offer ideas for what you're doing, and I think that anything that can help you get closer to your vision is what a good team member is, whether or not they're on the payroll. It's more of like those supporters. Like, you could tell a stranger of what you're doing and they'll support you more than your own brother.
You got it.
Like,
you got it.
That's what the other day I was like, if you tell people you're like, the whole thing of you tell people your plan or tell people what you're up to, be very wary about it. But if you tell the whole world, then everybody knows what you're up to.
Well, because I think it goes back to the law of attraction thing. You could be pulling in your own manifestations, and if somebody isn't on the same vibration or has that seed of doubt that you don't have, that now is all of a sudden messing with like your own project, that can definitely like make what I like to call blessings take a little longer to actually get to you. Just a side note.
Well, I pray for your success.
Thank you. And I pray for yours too.
Thank you. I hope that you win. I hope that this IPO goes well. And I hope that I pray that more ideas will come to you, because this is that week of awesomeness, the end
Yeah,
of
it is.
retrograde.
Yeah.
This is where it will all happen, man.
What's
And
your
it's only Tuesday.
No, it's random.
What's my what?
Horoscope.
My horoscope, Scorpio. I'm a feisty one. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a
Okay.
very feisty one.
I like to read like what the month is bringing for you, and mine was very like, if you need a rest day, it's okay.
That's great. I wonder what you'll find about me. Someone sent Ashley sent that to me the other day. That this was like a time. This month was the time of decisions that are going to affect like the next decade of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, well, yeah, I knew that. Thanks. when I read this thing, I'm like, I mean, I appreciate her sending it, but I mean, reading this thing, it's like, well, it was like, thanks, universe. It's like I'm seeing this line up right now. So that was part of it, and that came 2 days before I got the word back from this one investor that just wanted way too much equity. I'm like, I'm okay. I'm cool. Here's a decision. Just going to walk away.
I love that.
Yeah, that probably saved your bacon.
Likely, yes. Likely.
Well,
someday
Rick,
I'll tell you.
What's that?
I said someday I'll tell you.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, I'll tell you what. This has been fun, man. It really has.
Guys, thank you.
I think that you taking the time of 2 hours of your time and sharing and getting people with us and helping people if in some way, this was really great. So I don't know how to repay you. So thank you.
Dude, just let's keep doing this. For real. Yeah.
Do we know when it's going to go public? When you're going public?
No, we pick the date after we get the official approval from the SEC.
Cool.
So when you file, then they have an approval, and then you get to pick the date that works best for you. So you could have an approval and do an IPO a year later if you want to. That's not going to be the case, because we're hitting things hard here. It'll be third quarter this year.
Nice.
So between like August and October is what we're targeting.
Cool.
Well, that's awesome.
Well, we'll share the link. We're gonna share this, and we'll get it cut up and thrown online within the next couple of days. So
I love it. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Cool, guys. Yeah, thank you.
Bye, Ashley.
She's you're in my ears. I'll tell you to say bye. That's so fun.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys. Yeah. Talk to you soon. Bye.
That was fun, huh?
Yeah.